Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to our Hanafi Fiqh class. We are doing a kitab known as Sunan of Maulana Zafar Ahmad Thanvi rahimahullah. And tonight, inshallah ta'ala, we are continuing on from a new chapter within the vast chapters regarding Tahara. So without delays, let's begin. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. So tonight's chapter is Babu Bina il Mu'tadati idha stuhidat ala adatiha. That the chapter that a woman who has a habit, meaning in a menstruation, she has a regular habit. So her habit is to bleed for 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever her amount of days are. She's got a habit. So every month she bleeds that amount. So that's known as a mu'tada, a woman with a habit. So إذا استحيضت, if she now has istihada, so she's used to, for example, 5 days. Suddenly, the next month comes along and she bleeds for 11 days. So what happens now? Do we say 10 days is hayd? No. We say she works on her ada, and the entire rest of that 6 days that followed on that she bled, all of that is deemed as being istihada. Obviously, she knows the 11th day is istihada because you can't have hayd more than 10 days. So it will not be deemed as 10 days hayd and 1 day istihada. It will be considered as 5 days hayd and 6 days of istihada. If, however, she stopped bleeding by the 10th day, then her her habit would have changed. But when it comes like this here, that she's got a habit and it overlaps right through the beyond the allocated or at least the accepted amount, which is a maximum of 10 days. So when it stretches beyond that point, then automatically, yes, she was now not performing salah, for example, for 5 whole days from the uh, fifth day till the 10th day, which she thought now she's bleeding. So it's like, I'm going to hold back from salah because maybe my habit has changed. So in that case, she's got qada for those salahs to perform because she was actually pure and all of this was istihaba. The only difference is that there will be no sin in a case like this here because obviously she only abstained from salah because she assumed she was in a state of hayd. But any case, so this is the heading of the chapter tells a person the whole story that a woman who has a habit, when she bleeds beyond the limit, then she will return back to her habit, and everything beyond the habit will be deemed as being istihada. That's what the chapter heading is. So let's see the narrations. Hadith number 348. عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أن أم حبيبة بنت جحش رضي الله عنها شكت إلى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الدم فقال امكثي قدر ما كانت تحبسك حيضتك ثم اغتسلي وكانت تغتسل لكل صلاة. رواه مسلم. وفي رواية البخاري توضئي لكل صلاة، وهي لأبي داود وغيره من وجه آخر كما في بلوغ المرام. So Hadrat Aisha radiallahu anha mentions that Hadrat Habiba binti Jahsh, this is Hadrat Hamna binti Jahsh radiallahu anha, the sister of Hadrat Zainab binti Jahsh radiallahu anha, she complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam about the fact that she was bleeding one way, meaning istihada. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told her to stop performing salah for the duration ma kana tahbisuki haydatuki. The habit that you were used to bleeding before, don't perform salah for that amount of days. ثم اغتسلي, then make ghusl. And in other words, once you made your ghusl, then you start performing your salah again. Because this is istihada, is not deemed as being hayd. وَكَانَتْ تَغْتَسِلُ لِكُلِّ صَلَاةٍ. Now the narrator mentions that she used to make a ghusl for every salah. And we did do this just in last week. But there's the hadith of Imam Muslim, the riwayah of Imam Bukhari, rahimahullah, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, or at least it's mentioned in that narration, tawadda'i li kulli salatin, that the hadith mentions that make wudu for every salah. Like we know is the standard norm with regards to a woman in the state of istihada. She will make wudu at the time of every salah. And the time for every salah was discussed in detail last week as well. So the hadith is also reported by Imam Abu Dawud and others as well from a slightly different angle. And this is mentioned by Imam Ibn Hajar rahimahullah in Bulugh al-Maram. Anyway, let's move to the next narration because it's quite straightforward. Hadith number 349. عن سليمان بن يسار عن أم سلمة زوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قالت: إن امرأة كانت تهراق الدماء على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، فاستفتت لها أم سلمة رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال: لتنظر عدة الليالي والأيام التي كانت تحيضهن من الشهر قبل أن يصيبها الذي أصابها، فلتترك الصلاة قدر ذلك من الشهر، فإذا خلفت ذلك فلتغتسل ثم لتستثفر بثوب ثم لتصلي. So the next narration is reported by Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who said that a woman who had excessive bleeding, meaning istihaadhah, tuharaq, it means like, you know, when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke in a hadith about the best jihad, وَأُهْرِيقَ دَمُهُ, the قُتِلَ جَوَادَهُ وَأُهْرِيقَ دَمَهُ, that his horse's legs are cut and his blood is spilled. So إهراق, تهراق, أهرق يهرق, إهراق, تهراق here refers to, not referring to a woman shedding her blood, but it means that she's bleeding excessively because of istihaadhah. So there was a woman who was bleeding a lot in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam on her behalf. Fastaftat, she sought a fatwa. Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha went to ask what the fatwa is to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for her. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said: لتنظر عدة الليالي والأيام التي كانت تحيضهن من الشهر قبل أن يصيبها الذي أصابها. Let her look at her habit that she used to have previously. How many days and nights that she used to bleed previously in a month. قبل أن يصيبها الذي أصابها, before this has occurred to her, that now she's bleeding one-way ticket. Then فلتترك الصلاة قدر ذلك من الشهر, then let her stop performing salah for that amount of time in the month. So if her habit once again was like 5 days, then let her stay away from performing salah for 5 days, and فإذا خلفت ذلك, and when that time has passed, when she reaches her habit, whatever it was, whether 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 days, whatever it is, when she passes that amount, فلتغتسل, then let her make ghusl, ثم لتستثفر بثوب. What is لتستثفر? ثفر here refers to tying with a cloth. So the ulama have explained that it's kind of like, to describe it, they say, so the woman goes and she has her ghusl, then she will put cotton, which you're gonna call it a pad or whatever, and then she puts an additional cloth over there, a cloth. And the ulama explained to the point, to the extent of saying, it's like you've got a cloth which you put over you, and then you've got like 2 ends to it that you can tie so that it also prevents the blood flow. So it's like it's got multiple usages. So it supports, and it also strengthens the woman in the sense that no extra blood will come out. So once she does that, ثم لتصلي, then let her perform salah. Now, is it necessary to go and find a specific cloth that you can now go and tie yourself with? Not exactly. The point was simply that use something, in other words, don't go standing and literally you are bleeding. So it's like 4 gallons of blood is running out all over the place like that. It's kind of telling you, just use your sense, wash yourself, remove the blood from you, use a clean pad, add a little, in today's time, you get a thicker pad, you get a stronger thing, add a little bit extra support, and then perform salah. That's basically what it's saying in a nutshell, straightforwardly. Okay, question over here. How will a woman know which 5 days is Haydh if a woman doesn't bleed on the same dates every month? 5 days is an amount I am making up. A woman has got a habit. So let's put it this way. There's one of 2 situations. Either a woman has a habit or she doesn't have a habit. If she has a habit, then she knows either she's got a tuhur habit or a hayd habit. So a woman may have a hayd habit, 5 days, but her tuhur habit differs. So every month, maybe she's got 20 days clean, then she's got 24 days clean, then 28 days clean. So that's her tuhur. That can differ. The minute her blood comes on, that's when her hayd begins. So her habit is just that from the time it begins, 5 days, then it cuts out. That is what is known as a habit. So that's how a woman determines what her habit is as such. So bleeding on the it's not that you're going to bleed from the 1st to the 5th of the month. So come April Fool's Day and you're bleeding. Not like that. Don't work according to that. It works according to so X amount of bleeding days, X amount of pure days. That's how it actually works, not according to calendar days. That uh, 1st of January to 31st, not like that. So simply put, a woman let me summarize. This is the case of the woman who has a habit. If there's a woman and she does not have a habit, so 1 month she bleeds for 5 days. Next month, she bleeds for 6 days. Then she bleeds for 3 days. Then she bleeds for 7 days. This woman does not have a habit as such, because she's changing the whole time. Yes, a habit will basically be considered to be the last day, last amount she bled. So if she bled 5 days, then 6 days, then next month, 6 days it stopped, then we say 6 days is your habit. And if next month it's 7 days, when you say 7 days is your habit, like that, that's how it goes based on her last bleeding amount. And then you have the case of the woman who bleeds one-way ticket, uh, 10 days, 11 days straight, in which case we'll say the whole amount is Haydh. The whole 10 days will be Haydh if she has no habit at all and she just bleeds one way all the time. Or it's been like so long that she can't remember what her habit used to be. In that case, we say the whole 10 is Haydh, and from the day 11 onwards is Istihaadhah. I hope that answers the question, if I've understood it correctly. Okay, so anyway, I can't remember what I was saying, but anyway, coming back to the hadith itself, one adds the extra support on, and she then performs her salah. Rawahu Abu Dawud wa sakata anhu. Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah reports the hadith and he is silent on it, which is, as we have touched upon many times, when Imam Abu Dawud keeps silent on the hadith that he narrates, it means he considers it to be authentic. Otherwise, he would have commented on it to say otherwise. وفي التلخيص الحبير in تلخيص الحبير of Imam Ibn Hajar رحمه الله, he says قال النووي إسناده على شرطهما. He mentions that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah said that the chain of narration is according to the criteria, meaning the criteria of Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim رحمهم الله. وقال البيهقي هو حديث مشهور إلا أن سليمان لم يسمعه منها. Imam al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah, he says, the hadith is well known, it's famous. Only thing is Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar did not hear the hadith from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. That's Imam Bayhaqi's statement. وفي رواية لأبي داود عن سليمان أن رجلا أخبره عن سلمة رضي الله عنها. Now, Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah's narration mentions that Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar narrates that a man informed him that Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha said this. إمام وللدارقطني عن سليمان أن فاطمة بنت أبي حبيش استحيضت فأمرت أم سلمة رضي الله عنها. Imam Daraqutni rahimahullah, he reports from Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar that Hazrat Fatima binti Abi Hubaysh radiyallahu anha, she had Hayd, not Hayd but Istihaadhah, and Hazrat Salama radiyallahu anha gave her the fatwa. وقال المنذري لم يسمعه سليمان. Imam al-Mundhiri said Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar never heard it from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. وقد رواه موسى بن عقبة عن نافع عن سليمان عن مرجانة رضي الله عنها. So he says Imam Musa ibn Uqba, he reports from Imam Nafi' from Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar, who reports from Marjana from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. Now, basically all that's taking that's taking place over here is difference of opinion as to where the what you can say now, did Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar hear directly from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha or not. So the muhaddithin have differing opinions. Imam Bayhaqi said no. Imam Abu Dawud said there was a man who heard from Hazrat Salama. Imam Sulaiman heard from him. Imam Daraqutni said it was regarding Hazrat Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh. As according to Imam Mundhiri, he agreed kind of with Imam Bayhaqi, who said no. Imam Musa ibn Uqba, in his version, it is reported from Marjana. Now, Marjana is known as Marjana al-Madaniya. Marjana al-Madaniya was one of the teachers of Imam Sulaiman, not teachers per se, they considered to be teachers, but anyone who narrated a hadith to another person was considered to be their teacher. So Marjana was considered to be the teacher of Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar and others as well. And she heard from Hadrat Habiba radiallahu anha, from Hadrat Salama radiallahu anha, the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So she heard a hadith, and thus Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar got from her as well. now قلت هذه الروايات ممكنة التطبيق فلا يعل الحديث. Imam Zafar Ahmad Thanvi says these varying different narrations, it's possible to remove it's possible to free them from any issue by joining them up. And how do you do this? He says ففي الجوهر النقي. In Jawhar al-Naqi, the kitab, it's mentioned ذكر صاحب الكمال, the author of Al-Kamal, he mentions أن سليمان سمع من أم سلمة فتحتمل أنه سمع هذا الحديث منها ومن رجل عنها وقد على هذا رواية مرجانة ودلالة الحديثين على الباب ظاهرة. So he says here, it's mentioned in Al-Kamal that Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar, he did hear a hadith from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. So, number one, what's to prevent him from having heard this hadith from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha in the first place? So that's number one. He heard already a hadith from her. So you can't discount that he heard it directly. Number one. Number two, it's possible that he heard this from another man, also from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. In other words, he heard it himself, another man told him, and Marjana also told him. So, it's like if we attend a madrasa today, you go to, I'll give an example, in ulama circles today in hadith, we've got hadith al-rahma, hadith al-rahmat al-musalsal bil-awwaliyya, the hadith known as al-hadith al-musalsal bil-awwaliyya, al-rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-rahman, that hadith. So, I can say I narrate a hadith al-Rahma from over 10 different ulama. So different chains running up in different directions. So the fact that Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar heard it directly from the source, from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha, doesn't prevent the fact that when he was taking a hadith from everywhere he could, that another man told him, who also had heard this from Hazrat Salama, and he heard it from his teacher Marjana, who also had heard it from Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. So basically the point being, to summarize this whole debate over here, the certain muhaddithin were having an issue to say that although Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar is authentic and all, but they're saying there's somebody missing from the chain. And if there's somebody missing from the chain, a chain is deemed to be weak in their opinion, those muhaddithin. For the Hanafi madhab, there wouldn't have been an issue in the first place. But nonetheless, so we respond to their argument and we say that, number one, he was a student of Hazrat Salama radiallahu anha. So you cannot discount that he didn't hear this from her. Number one. Number two, we say, yeah, Marjana was one of his teachers. So nothing prevents him from having heard it from Marjana, as is found in the narration of Imam Musa ibn Uqba. And we also say that he had many other teachers. Imam Sulaiman ibn Yasar is a famous Imam of Hadith. So nothing prevents him from having heard it from another man too. So he basically had it with three different chains of narration, is what we are boiling down to. He narrates one directly, he narrates one through Marjana, and he narrates one through another male teacher of his. And he says, Dalalatul hadithaini ala al-babi zahira, and the proof in both ahadith related to this chapter is quite clear. In other words, that her habit is what is taken into account, and beyond the habit is deemed as being istihaadhah. Do we have... Okay, let's do one more hadith where we can do for another 7 minutes. باب جواز وطء المستحاضة. That permissible, the chapter that it is permissible for a man to sleep with his wife who is in a state of istihadah, have intercourse. So hadith number 350 عن عكرمة رحمه الله قال: كانت أم حبيبة رضي الله عنها تستحاض فكان زوجها يغشاها. رواه أبو داود. وقال قال يحيى بن معين معلى ثقة، وكان أحمد بن حنبل لا يروى عنه لأنه كان ينظر في الرأي. Okay, so Imam Ikrima, he said that Hazrat Habiba radiallahu anha, she used to have istihada and her husband used to yaghshaha, literally mean to cover, but another narration explains yujami'uha, used to sleep with her like husband and wife. Now, who is Hazrat Habiba radiallahu anha? This is not Umm al-Mu'mineen, Hazrat Habiba, Ramla binti Abi Sufyan radiallahu anhuma. We're not referring to al-Mu'mineen radiallahu anha. This is Hazrat Hamna binti Jahsh radiallahu anha. Her kunya was Habiba. So we're talking about Hazrat Hamna binti Jahsh radiallahu anha, that she used to have istihada and her husband used to sleep with her in a state of istihada. So there's no harm if you sleep with your wife while she's having istihada. Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah reports it, and he says Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in said the narrator in the chain Mu'alla is authentic, and Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal did not, but Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal did not narrate from him because أنه كان ينظر في الرأي. When you talk about Ashabi Rai, as people from Indian Indo-Pak subcontinent would pronounce it, Ashabi Ahli Rai. But anyway, so he says because of this, Imam Ahmad did not narrate from him, but this is not a flaw in the narrator. So Imam Yahya ibn Ma'in said is an authentic, you can take from him. Imam Ahmad not taking from him for that reason doesn't harm him in the least. وفي فتح الباري وهو حديث صحيح إن كان عكرمة سمعه منها. قلت صنيع أبي داود يدل على السماع والنظر في الرأي ليس بجرح عند التحقيق. So okay, he says here that in Fathul Bari, Imam Ibn Hajar, he says وهو حديث صحيح, it is a sahih hadith إن كان عكرمة سمعه منها. He says it will be an authentic hadith if it is proven that Imam Ikrima had heard the hadith from Hazrat Hamna binti Jahsh radiyallahu anha. So in other words, Imam Ibn Hajar is saying he's not 100% sure, did Imam Ikrima hear it directly, or is there somebody in the chain who's missing? In other words, is it a mursal or did he hear directly? So he said, if he heard directly, by all means, then it's authentic. If he didn't hear directly, then who is there that's being left out? That's basically what he's coming down to. So Mulana Zafar, he says, قلت صنيع أبي داود يدل على السماع. Mulana Zafar, he says, the way Imam Abu Dawud has narrated this hadith points out to the fact that Ikrima did hear it from Hadrat Hamna radiallahu anha. So in that case, the issue that Imam Ibn Hajar that was making him hesitate, that is responded to because if Imam Abu Dawud doubted it, he would have alluded to it, and because he didn't allude to it, meaning he considered it that Imam Ikrima had heard it directly. Number one. Secondly, answering Imam Ahmad, he says, وَالنَّظْرُ فِي الرَّأْيِ, dealing in ra'i is not considered to be something of jarh. Jarh meaning you've got jarh or ta'dil. Jarh means it's a fault, it's a flaw, and your narrations are not accepted. So he says, according to muhaqqiqeen, the ulama, what is established is that if you were involved in it, it doesn't affect your authenticity. So in other words, the argument of Imam Ahmad don't hold water, and the hesitation of Imam Ibn Hajar is responded to by the essence of the way Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah reported the hadith. Okay, we'll stop on this point here. There's still 2 more hadith left for the chapter, but we don't have that amount of time before the class ends. Or at least before the time runs out. So for that reason, we end on this point for tonight, inshallah ta'ala. Until next week, we end and we say, وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ وَسَلَّمَ وَبَارَكَ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ سُبْحَانَ اللَّهِ وَبِحَمْدِهِ سُبْحَانَكَ اللَّهُمَّ وَبِحَمْدِكَ نَشْهَدُ أَن لَّا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنْتَ نَسْتَغْفِرُكَ وَنَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.